guys ready? It is 4 o'clock, and I would like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. Mr. Ross is excused today, so it'll be the three of us. All right, Mr. Oberst, will you take us away with action items, please?
All right, first, only action item this month is our purchasing agenda. A couple of items, or an item related to Buchanan Furniture on the agenda, translation services, as you can see there under B2, and then a couple of items under the special fund section related to Ken's area, a new playground at Coit, and then an upgrade of audiovisual in this room, right, Ken?
Yes.
With the KETA grant, which is a grant we've gotten the last few years, Ken?
Yes, and it's through the local cable TV.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Which has allowed us to upgrade technology.
Okay.
In some of our other buildings besides here too, so it works out great. So.
Right, so mostly back of the house would be where all that, yeah,
And,
okay.
and we're also planning to use this for our high school auditoriums, at least this funding source.
Oh, fantastic. Good. All right, any questions? All right, may I have a motion to move forward the purchasing agenda to the full board?
So moved.
Support.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Okay, reports.
Reports updates, the dashboard report for February, which are 8 months, is 8 months into our current fiscal year. We're tracking actually a little bit better than maybe what we expect this time of year. Just want to remind you that the 2018 annual budget column, the middle column there, was updated to reflect the Amendment 1 that was approved back in January, as well as the projected fund balance at 7.35% is a projection based on that Amendment 1 budget. So things like I said are tracking appropriately. As you can see now, if you look near the bottom there, the middle column, the bond-related capital expenditures since the bonds were issued is close to $30 million. That activity is picked up significantly over the next, really the remainder of this calendar year. We'll see that grow pretty quickly with all the projects we have going currently. There will more to come as summer comes around, and we keep moving forward on that. So from a financial perspective, things on the general fund, things are appropriate at this time of year. And then what follows as normal in your packet is the details surrounding that. If you like to get into the weeds, you're more than welcome to do that at any point in time. So, Ken, you can talk about the Warm, Safe, and Dry, which is in its twilight years now.
Warm, safe, and dry. There's really no update. We're still closing out projects, and we have roughly $250,000 in reserve for an emergency. Should we lose a boiler or a roof, we can spend it on that.
Great.
At some point, we'll determine how we want to spend that and spend it down. Right now, there's no timetable. For the bond, the biggest piece of information is we had the schedule for Buchanan was to have 13 classrooms ready for occupancy at spring break. We actually wound up with 16.
Great.
We received temporary occupancy last week. The furniture arrived today and is being assembled. The students will visit their new rooms on Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday night, we have a crew staying late, very late, to get everything in order as far as moving the classroom materials down to their new rooms. So when they come back from spring break, they're ready to go. We have a moving company coming in on Monday to clear out all the old furniture and things out of the way. We have 1 day to get it out of the way for the contractor. And the extra 3 rooms will really help make a difference for meeting the end schedule in August. But I need to acknowledge Triangle Associates, the construction manager, GMB, our architect, Brian Dykema, our owner's rep, and Jim Tian, our manager of design and construction. This happened only because of their hard work. And this was an aggressive goal to have these rooms ready. And a lot of people worked really hard to get to it. So I want to give credit to them.
Excellent.
City is moving along. Um, Nothing new to report, although it's going probably even smoother than we expected, but we'll see. There's more walls to open.
That's right.
GRPS University is on track to be done either late May or early June, so we will be able to hold professional development in there in the summer.
Great.
Museum High School is on track for a July completion and be ready for staff and students in August. The 6 elementaries with air conditioning, we did not expect to have any of them ready for this fall. Because of current conditions in the building, we're able to get Campus L and Frost L will have air conditioning this fall. The equipment that you approved at the last board meeting, which takes about 16 weeks, will arrive early August. So we can't promise they'll be ready for the start of school, but certainly sometime early in the school year we'll have air turned on there. The other 4 we're looking at sometime in this probably late spring to have air conditioning in. And that would be East Leonard, North Park, Shawmut, Buchanan. And then we are working on early phases of design work for Ottawa Union and Southwest Community Campus High School. If all goes well, we would expect to be able to bid those in late fall, early winter. So the best optimistic schedule will be in November.
Wonderful. Any questions, you guys? Any of that? Good. Yeah, no spring break if you're in construction, that's for sure. It's go time. Awesome, good work. Okay, let's talk about the Senate budget.
Yeah, included in your packet is an updated PowerPoint. Last Wednesday, the state Senate weighed in with their school aid budget. We also found out that the House will not present their budget till after spring break, so sometime the week after next, they hope to weigh in. Good news in the Senate perspective. They actually approved more money than in total than the governor had proposed. So a little bit of change. You want to look at that. We'll just quickly go through it. The PowerPoint presentation in your materials there. You can see in the second page that the Senate's proposal was almost $97 million in total, greater than what the governor had proposed. On the foundation allowance, you may recall the governor proposed 120 to 240. We would get the 240. The 2X formula, the Senate reduced that just a bit, 115 to 230, using the same 2X formula, which is good. The $25 per high school student, which was new last year, and the governor kept it in his budget for this year. The Senate weighed in and agreed with the governor to leave it in there. On page 3, the preschool GSRP, about $244 million, which is about the funding level this year. The governor left intact, and the Senate agreed with the governor on GSRP funding for the current year. At-risk funding, 31A, still totals close to $500 million. The Senate agreed with the dollar amount. What the Senate has left open is the wording surrounding some of the 31A, both in how you measure 31A students, as well as specifically as to what outcomes. The governor had the same metrics as he had last year, minus 1. So 3rd grade reading, 8th grade math, and then high school, college, and career readiness. And you may recall they'd be measured based on standardized tests. So the testing that takes place in this current fiscal year would be the baseline. And then if you don't measure up to the baseline, you have a couple of years to get to that baseline before. If you don't make it at that point in time, there's other corrective measures that kick in. The Senate's left that open at this point. They said they will continue to dialogue through the budgeting process. So we'll have to wait and see if they come up with any wording. We'll have to wait and see what the House says, and ultimately what a conference committee will come up with. But that's open at this point in time. Going to the 4th page there, the career technical education, the governor proposed $5 million in new funding. based on a per CTE student, $25 to $50. The $50 per student would be for the most in-demand CTE programs, which right now is about 60 to 70% of the enrollment. The Senate maintained the total $5 million funding. A couple of restrictions. One, that at least half of that be spent on equipment. And the other, in terms of the distribution of that $5 million, it would go to intermediate, or actually school districts, certified technical education districts that did not have a CTE millage. Kent County would not qualify. We do have a CTE millage at the ISD level, and so the distribution of the $5 million in the Senate plan would bypass Kent County completely. So that would be the Senate's CTE proposal would not be in the best interest of the districts within the Kent Intermediate School District. The governor would, that $25 to $50 would be for any district that has CTE students in place. So it's more inclusive, if you will. Shared time, again, the governor the last couple of years has been trying to rein in the cost of shared time. His proposal this year was to limit the shared time FTEs to no more than 5% of the district's enrollment. That had amounted to a limit to us of just over 700 students. Our fall count, we had over 900 students in shared time programs. The estimated, as well as it eliminated kindergarten shared time, which was new a year ago. So total reduced funding on the governor's proposal for our shared time program would be in excess of $1 million, which is significant. The Senate's proposal would also eliminate kindergarten, which is about $400,000 for us, but would not, the only limit it would put on the rest of the shared time program would an FTE limit on the shared time student from the current 0.75 to 0.67. Now, we do not have any shared time student FTEs that exceed 0.4, so this would not, that lowering to 0.67 would not impact us negatively from that perspective. Eliminating kindergarten would.
One quick question on that point. I understood it that the Senate proposed where the governor proposed to limit shared time FTEs to 5%, the Senate had another percentage that they were proposing, and that it was around 10% for districts who have already been doing the work. Was that, maybe that didn't make it out to the final piece?
Didn't make it out.
Okay.
Final, yeah. The data analytics, which about 3 or 4 years ago now, the governor proposed funding data software packages that allow us to better analyze the district's performance against peer districts, against districts statewide. Provided funding for that. So basically, and we started licensing some of that software a year ago, in our second year now. Really doesn't cost us anything. The state picks up the whole cost of that at this point. That was one of there were about a dozen or so small categoricals that the governor had eliminated in his budget, this being one of them. The Senate put it back in at $1.5 million, which is the funding level we're at this year, which was good. The MIPSers, and again, there are several pieces to this whole MIPSers puzzle every year. You may recall a year ago, it was decided to reduce the discount factor used in MIPSers from 8% to 7.5%. That costs some money. It also resulted in an increase in the normal cost of 0.62% last year. It was a 2-year transition, so this is the second year, again, a 0.62% increase. There is funding to offset that additional cost for these next 2 years, and the Senate concurs with the governor for this year as they did last year. The 147A payment to districts, this is the $100 million that we get from the state and then turn around and give it right back to them. It's at $100 million, and the Senate concurred with that, but added additional $5 million to offset costs to the intermediate school districts, which don't get the same funding from the 147A. And then the rate cap is at just about almost 1.1 million, or billion, I'm sorry. That is the dollars that go directly from the school aid fund into the MIPSERS program, and the Senate concurs with the governor. Special ed total funding at $1.4 billion in the governor's proposal, which is about the level we're at this year. The Senate concurs with the governor on that and their budget. The cyber school funding, again, the last couple of years, the governor's tried to wanted to reduce that funding. This year was 25%. The Senate put it back in to get a full funding allowance under their proposal. Itinerant funding, $2 million in total from the governor. The Senate agrees with that. ISD funding from the state, there was no change in funding levels in the governor's proposal. And interestingly, the Senate has increased that funding by 1% in their proposal. So those are the major implications of the Senate's budgets compared to the governor. Like I said, hopefully, I think by next month's meeting, we'll have the House's version in place, and we can show all three of them and see where things may come out. So, all in all, really, it's a positive from the Senate, not significant differences, which means if it goes to conference committee, at this point, not knowing what the House looks like, but with these two proposals, they're close enough together, and it's all very positive in terms of additional funding levels for us.
Could I question related to the at-risk funding, if we go back to that for a moment?
Sure.
How many students do we have, or percentage of students of our enrollment that are eligible for at-risk, and what funding level does that mean for us? And then what is your take in terms of forecasting which way the government is going with respect to funding, and what implications there are for us?
Last I looked, we're in the neighborhood of just over 11,000 of our students qualify as at-risk students. And Rhonda, what's our funding? 9 million at risk total?
It went up to, I think it's
11 million, about $11 million in total 31A funding for those students. You may recall last year there was a 40% increase in overall funding for 31A, but also more districts were eligible that had previously not been eligible, like hold harmless districts as an example. Mm-hmm. My take, I'm not sure. Well, the good thing is, Dr. Flores, is the funding levels remain the same, so we'll get those dollars. The question becomes, there's been some talk about, this year even, there was a change had to be made in the initial wording of at risk, because unintended consequence of the wording that would eliminate some of the students that really need to be in there. So they've been looking at just who should qualify. At the same juncture, as you know, the last year we've had 2 funding adequacy studies that both have shown, as we knew, we're significantly underfunded, and at special needs, at-risk students are part of that. So really the question is, what are the outcomes, the accountability factors? The last few years, the accountability factors have changed every year, and they weren't going to kick in a couple of years after the current legislation, which is why they never stayed intact enough to actually measure it. As you know, we have an election coming up in November, and the new governor. So my take is, frankly, maybe no matter what they come up with, it may not kick in, because the new governor next year may have completely different ideas of how accountability for those 31A dollars should flow. So I'm not as concerned about that. I think, we remain focused on 3rd grade literacy, 8th grade math, and college career readiness because we know we have challenges in our district, and it's the right thing to do. And I think we'll continue to remain focused on that, no matter how it all ultimately comes out in 31A accountability factors. I can't see those things really changing significantly, because no one's going to argue that those are appropriate things to look at, so.
Okay. And last question, I read about the potential countywide millage that's being proposed for First Steps. Is there any implications at all for our district with that program, or no?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I can look into it. I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking at that at this point in time, so.
Yeah, I was just curious when I read that.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention about this budget, just like the governor's budget, it does not include the Marshall Plan that the governor proposed. That's not part of the Senate's budget. That, again, will be potentially handled separately, like the governor has proposed it separately. So there's no funding in the school aid budget for the Marshall Plan, which is $100 million, the governor's $100 million. So that remains to be seen what happens with that particular plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Other questions, comments?
No, thank you very much for the overview. All right, I think that wraps things up. The only thing I'll note here to my fellow committee members is our May meeting, we are looking at actually rescheduling. So we were going to meet on the 21st in advance of the board meeting, but due to budgeting, we're going to look at Tuesday, the 29th of May. So that's the day after Memorial Day. So please let me know if that doesn't work for you. We're going to push toward that unless I hear otherwise. Good?
Okay.
Excellent.
Follow up.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.